Good morning, everyone. It's good to see you all. I am the Reverend Ellen Quaadgras in co-leadership here at South Church with Kirsten Hunter and in shared ministry with all of you. Welcome this morning on this beautiful fall morning to everyone online. So glad to have you with us. And it's good to see you all here in the sanctuary. It's good to be together. And it's good to be together here in this sanctuary where we do acknowledge every week at the beginning of our service the people who stewarded this land before this sanctuary was built. We acknowledge the Abenaki and Pennacook nations whose ancestors tended this land for millennia and whose presence is still among us in our time. These are people who did not cede this land and for whom true justice remains elusive. We name this truth every week as an invitation to broaden our understanding of this past so that we might deepen our capacity to act for justice in the present. Our theme this month is invitation, and you will have received invitations to all kinds of things this month. You will see them in the order of service, you will see them in the fall brochure, and you will see some of them on this special card, which I had meant to have up here with me, but I do not. So if any of you happens to have a spiritual decathlon card with you and could just raise it, thank you. On that special card are still more invitations to spiritual practice. If you didn't get one, there are some in the back. You can pick one up on your way out. And if you have no idea what the spiritual decathlon is, there is a QR code on that card when you get one in the lower right-hand corner. Scan that, find the webpage, it tells you more about it. Regardless, these are all ways to grow your spirit, and all of them along the lines of invitation. You will see on the card, the very first one includes an Ask Me About sticker. This is an invitation to put that on your name tag at coffee hour, because you know I love to invite you to talk to one another around some question at that time. And this is a chance for you to invite that conversation on a topic of your choice. So ask me about my favorite pair of shoes, my last vacation, my problem with my auto mechanic, whatever inspires you this morning to put on that Ask Me About sticker, you put it on there and people will be invited to ask you at coffee hour. And there will be, at coffee hour, gold star stickers. Yes, handed out. If you did the spiritual practice this week, or frankly, if you do one today, note, Ask Me About stickers. You can just write it in that little box at the bottom for week 1 and come find me or Linda Myers-Tierney, who's over there. She'll have a little star with her. She doesn't know this yet. She'll have this star with her, and either one of us will be happy to give you your gold star. I am grateful to be here today with Chris, our worship associate, Chris Kiper. And Susan Adams will be playing the piano. Kathy Okeisen will be leading us in song. Jen Leiden is on tech. Kirsten will be leading our Time for All Ages, after which all of our young people are invited to religious education, which will be downstairs. If you are a parent of a young one, please go down with them and just make sure they're signed in and settled. Bob Vaccaro has graciously agreed to offer a testimonial on covenant groups, a session which you can even try out right after service today. And if you need listening devices, an usher can help you with that. If you need a large print hymnal, an usher can help you with that too. I invite you to silence your electronic device if you have one, and we now make some time for announcements.
Good morning. So I'm going to throw a bunch of information at you because there is so much happening and a couple things that really need lifting up. And I encourage you to follow up on them by reading. For the most part, you can read more about it in the order of service, or connecting with the people who are doing the ministries that I'm lifting up this morning. One that is not in your order of service, the Social Justice Associates group have been working very hard on an immigration worship service that's going to be offered next week. Don't miss it. It should be really a really fantastic service, digging into the immigration in all kinds of ways. And then immediately after worship next week, they'll be showing a film downstairs and feeding you lunch and inviting you into some discussion. So there'll be more information coming out about that this week, but please know about that. It's not in the order of service, but you can talk. It is? Okay. Or you can talk to Tess Feltis or Deanna Strand about that at Social Hour. Also, not in the order of service, are kitchen ministry folks, who are the people who create our Social Hour every Sunday. They need more help. And I wonder if we might actually think of this as a spiritual decathlon item, because kitchen ministry is just this beautiful way to give to the community, particularly if you are an introvert. It gives you a job to do, and I know for myself, believe it or not, I feel uncomfortable in social situations when I don't know people, and that is just an excellent way to plug in, have a job to do, and have an excuse to kind of be moving about and also meeting people and serving fellowship here at South Church. So please consider helping out the kitchen ministry. I believe there's a clipboard right down in the kitchen, or you can talk to Kevin or Jan or Rachel Eichenbaum, who are here today, about that. Okay, quick things to lift up that are in your order of service. There's a drop-in covenant group today that allows you to try out covenant groups if you're curious about what they are. Covenant group registration is happening right now, and again, is a really excellent way to build relationship at South Church. There's also more postcard writing happening today for Get Out the Vote initiatives. That's happening downstairs in the Piscataqua room near the kitchen. And finally, there's 2 weeks left, this Sunday and next, to sign up for the fall retreat. And that is a wonderfully connective opportunity for spiritual engagement and people meeting and deepening of relationships. They will have a table out on the portico, and you can find out more. I think I hit them all. Please, one more correction. The holiday auction is on Saturday the 16th, not Friday the 15th. It's the last item in the first section of your order of service. Thanks. Follow up. Read your order of service. Thanks so much.
So when I was asked by Valerie Fagan from the Worship Learning Associates to say a few words about covenant groups, she said she thought I was a good speaker. Flattery won over truth, so here I am. Fortunately, I love covenant groups and have benefited from at least 20 over my 45 years in this church. So that we might know who is available to augment or modify what I say, could you please raise your hand if you've ever been in a covenant group? Okay, so look around. Now keep your hand raised for a few more seconds if you would be open to sharing your experience on your way out of the sanctuary or at coffee hour. Thank you. That takes pressure off me to get this right. A covenant group brings together from 6 to 10 church mates who have in common when they are available to meet. Twice a month over the upcoming 4 months. That's it. The group members covenant to make attendance a high priority, to speak and listen respectfully, and to hold in confidence what they hear in the 2-hour meetings. The Learning Associates provide each meeting a lesson plan which often incorporates themes of our Sunday services. These plans include times for check-in, inspiring readings, and questions about what life experiences or emotions are stirred up in you by the readings. The plans are emailed to you a few days before each meeting in case you want time to reflect on the questions. However, since the only right answers are what you want to share about your reactions to the readings, no preparation is necessary. and you're allowed to pass on any or all of the questions. There are 2 golden rules for covenant groups. The first is that when someone is speaking, there is no crosstalk and no interruptions. The second is that when that member is done speaking, feedback and questions are not allowed. At first, I felt frustration with this second rule. My ego strained to know more or to affirm the speaker as if I could take away their pain. I learned that this need of mine to be helpful could also be intrusive. I also learned that when it was my turn to speak, knowing that I would not be asked to elaborate on or defend what I shared, I was more willing to share vulnerable experiences or feelings. Being able to speak them, I could see their connection to irrational thoughts and let them go. In the light of such transformative benefit, I have come to embrace the golden rules. To the extent our culture favors individual achievements over collaboration and community, we pay a price in loneliness and social isolation. All church groups can mitigate this loneliness, but to my mind, none do it as intentionally as our covenant groups. If the timings or locations of the proposed groups starting in October don't work for you, let us know what would work. If you would like a sample covenant group experience, I'm offering that today, as soon after 11:30 as the classroom opens up in what we call the Harvey Milk Room, which is right behind the reception desk downstairs. I hope to see a few of you there, and thank you.
May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be well. May you be filled with loving kindness. May you be well. May we be peaceful and at ease. May we be whole. May we be peaceful and at ease. May we be whole.
Good morning. As we light our chalice here, we invite people watching at home to light a candle or chalice of their own. Today we light the chalice with these words from Reverend Rebecca Savage. We light our flaming chalice each week with a simple spark to make holy our time together. With this flame, may our highest intentions be refreshed. With this flame, may we remember who we are and whose we are. With this flame, may our faith be renewed and reignited to guide our journey. Amen, and may it be so. Please rise in body or in spirit and join me in reciting the mission statement printed in your order of service. At South Church, we nurture spiritual growth through worship, learning, and community. We celebrate the worth and dignity of all people and inspire one another to act on our faith in the larger community. To get to Guimas Island from here, you take a 6-hour flight to Seattle, Washington, then a 2-hour car ride to the town of Anacortes, then a half-hour ferry ride to reach the island. I've never been there, but my partner Kate visited her aunt and uncle when she was a kid. It's a special place that's taken on almost a mythological status in our family. Steep cliffs, giant fir trees, orcas swimming in the bay. Uncle Tom and Auntie Karen have visited us often the past 20 years. Every other year or so, they'll take a trip to the East Coast to be with family, and we get to spend some time with them. We often joke that at 80 years old, they have lots more energy than we do. Very loving, generous, humorous people, always telling us interesting stories. They FaceTimed Kate on a Sunday afternoon early in June this year. After catching up for a little bit, they said, "We have a surprise for you. Go get the kids, go get Chris." So we all gathered around the little iPhone screen with our suspenseful smiles. And they said, "We're going to fly you all out to Guimas Island for 10 days in the next 4 to 6 weeks. The kids' faces lit up. "We're going to Guimas Island." Kate and I smiled as well, the way you do when you're really grateful and also kind of freaking out. It was just the beginning of summer. I had just started a new business. Our daughter Veda had a job, an internship, an AP class, soccer practice. Our son was a sailing instructor in training all summer. It was a tricky time to get away. For us, it's never really a good time to plan a 10-day trip on a month's notice, but the summer made it even harder. Though the invitation was delivered spontaneously, we knew it was very genuine and obviously very generous. The kids would be disappointed if we didn't go. Tom and Karen would be disappointed if we didn't go. We'd all be disappointed. And there's another thing. Though they didn't mention it, we knew Karen was dealing with some very serious health issues. We wanted so badly to show up for our faraway family and for our kids, and also knowing this would throw a huge monkey wrench into an already chaotic feeling summer. So it was uncomfortable when I emailed Tom to explain our situation. It was uncomfortable when Kate called her aunt to let her know that we couldn't make it. It didn't feel good, but it felt like the right thing to do for our family. A month later, Kate's sister and her family did make that trip to Washington. We saw the beautiful photos on Instagram, the kids on the ferry walking down golden forest paths. So they were there when their aunt passed away. Kate's sister found her in the bedroom. My brother-in-law performed CPR. There was nothing they could do. And so here we are. How do you justify the right decision? How do you know you're acting on the message that your heart sends? There's no easy answer. And we've come to learn that negotiating with life is inevitable. The value of insight drawn from unexpected hindsight is what forces us to grow. Please rise in body or in spirit for our opening hymn, "Break Not the Circle," number 323 in the Gray Hymnal.
Break not the circle of enabling love, where people grow forgiven and forgiving. Break not that circle, make it wider still, till it includes, embraces all the living. Come wonder at this love that comes to life, where words of freedom are with humor spoken, and people keep no score of wrong and guilt, but will that human
I would love to invite anybody of any age that would like to hear a story from a little closer up is welcome to come up and sit on the floor or on the front pew. Fabulous headwear today, Claire. Love it. So, we have been talking about invitation this month. And I was talking with Reverend Ellen about her sermon today and thinking about invitation, and something came to my mind that feels like an important thing to say. And it has to do with the younger folks in our congregation. See, something that I think is really precious about South Church, but really about church in general, or even there's things that aren't exactly church, but that are multi-generational communities that commit to being in relationship with one another over a long span of time. There's something deeply powerful about that and incredibly important to me. And what came to my mind when I was talking to Reverend Ellen was one of the reasons why. And that is that our young people, for me, and I think for most of us, are incredible mentors. Did you know that? Do you know that we learn from you a lot? I see a lot of people shaking their head no. So here's the thing. As a grown-up, whatever that word means, as an older person, in life, we start to collect all this stuff. This is kind of what it feels like anyway. We start sort of piling on experiences and responsibilities and senses of how things go, and also some like insecurities or parts of us that we feel a little embarrassed about or unsure about. And the older we get, the more stuff we tend to kind of grab onto ourselves. Sometimes all that stuff can get in the way of really simple things. Like someone might say to me, hey, do you want to come do blah? And my head goes, well, do I want to do that? And do they really want me to do that? Or are they just saying they want me to do that? And if I do that, will I be comfortable or will I feel nervous? And what's it going to be like? Who's going to be there? Like all these things go in my mind sometimes. When I see kids say to each other, hey, you want to play? Or hey, you want to go on the swings? Or hey, you want to ride bikes? Often, I just see a freeness in you and a willingness to go. Who knows what will happen? It might be fun. It might be boring. Either way, let's do it. Let's see what happens, right? And that is what I mean by one little part of how young people in my life are mentors for me, is that you remind me that I can stop thinking so much and just trust that something might be an adventure and go for it just in case. So I wanted to make sure you knew what an important role you play in my life and probably a lot of other people's lives. But I also wondered, do you have people in your lives that inspire you when you feel nervous? Because I bet sometimes you feel nervous. You never feel nervous? If you felt nervous, is there any one or thing or something that you think of that helps you kind of put it away? Do you want to share? Yeah.
Something that makes me feel nervous is going on a wooden roller coaster.
Yeah, wooden roller coasters make me feel nervous too. What, do you do something to help yourself do it anyway, or do you just not go?
I don't go.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. There are times when we're nervous and we decide no, and that's okay, right? I was thinking of, in addition to kids, another thing that gives me a sense of like, okay, there's another way to be, and I could be like this person, is my dog. She also is like let's go. Let's go. Who knows? Someone might be at the park. I might find something to eat on the side of the road. Let's go. Right? And I was thinking too about my son, who sometimes did get nervous about people inviting him places, but he never was nervous about nature. And he had friendships with the trees in our neighborhoods. Their arms were always just standing out ready for him, and he never doubted that they would hold him. And he would climb up those trees and sit in those branches and climb up way higher than I would be comfortable, because he felt trust and a sense that something good's probably going to happen. Anyone else have something like that? Somebody that they look up to, a mentor, or something in the world that helps them when they're nervous? Feel free to share. No. That's okay. You can think on it, and please know how much you are appreciated for the ways that you teach us older folks how to let go of some stuff and just step into the adventure that life offers us. We're going to sing you a song now, and you can go downstairs if you wish.
During the month of September, our collection will be shared with the South Church Immigration Support Fund. Organized in 2020, the ISF was born out of the challenges faced by those seeking asylum and facing the threat of deportation. The ISF raises and allocates funds to assist undocumented immigrants living in the Seacoast with living expenses, medical costs, legal services, and more. The offering will now be gratefully received. Please give as you are able.
for this precious day, for all gathered here and those far away, for this time we share with love and care. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day.
Our time of prayer and community care. With so much going on in our world and in our lives, I want to remind you that Kirsten and I are always here for you. Please reach out if you ever need a listening ear. And also, our pastoral associates are at the ready to help with meals and rides. You can fill out the card in your pew if you want to connect with any one of us. There is so much that's hard around us or in the world, and the difficulties I know you carry on your shoulders. How do we even begin to connect with it or comprehend it? At the all-church read book group last week, someone reminded me of the Buddhist metta prayer. We begin with love for ourselves, then expand toward love for the other, and expand further still, love for all others. I invite you to gather hearts and minds in a spirit of prayer or meditation. May I be filled with loving kindness.
May I be filled with loving kindness,
That I may be present to myself and all that is in me, that unsettles me, and all that calls to me.
may I be well,
May whatever kindness I cultivate in me remind you of all that is in you.
may you be filled with loving kindness,
I long for you to be well, too.
may you be well,
May we, all of us, here in this space and so far beyond this space, find peace and ease.
may we be peaceful and at ease.
We are all part of a much larger whole, aching for healing.
May we be whole.
May the love we each cultivate inside spill out over for all who need it.
May we be peaceful and at ease.
May hearts grow strong. May love prevail. May divisions heal.
May we be whole.
As we enter a time of reflection now, I invite you to open your heart to loving kindness for yourself, for someone you love, for anyone, anywhere who may need love and kindness. You may come forward to light a candle during this time if you wish. In spite of my Olympic debut last week, I'm not very good at softball. I know this because when I was on a team in my 20s, I was regularly invited to play right field. Now, you may have heard the saying, so-and-so is out in left field, which makes it sound like that's the position you do not want to play in a softball game. But anyone who's ever actually played this sport knows that, in truth, it is right field that sees almost no action ever, unless the other team happens to have a lot of lefties or your pitcher is having a very bad day. Bottom line, I almost never saw any action, except for the game when I did. And I don't know how this happened, but I kept missing the ball. Did it run through my legs, fly over my head, sail past me on the ground, all of the above? I don't remember. I just know the game did not end in my team's favor. Afterwards, my good friend and teammate came up to me with some helpful pointers. Things like, you have to have your mitt ready. It will help if you keep your eyes open. And when the ball is coming your way, run toward it, not away. In my defense, I knew many of these things, but I did not want to get hit in the shins, and I did not want to get hit in the face. And running toward it seemed like a good way to make both of these things more likely. But she made a strong case. Listen, Ellen, if you run toward the ball, she said, your whole attitude will shift. Your kinesthetic instincts will kick in. Your body will find a flow you did not know was there. Something innate will take over. She was convincing, and it sounded right, but if I'm really honest, I'm not sure how diligently I tried her advice. At least, not on the softball fields. But I have wondered about it many times since for things on the field of life. How does moving toward what I'm afraid of change my attitude toward it? What innate capacities might doing that call out in me? Capacities I might not even be aware of. What might happen if I keep my eyes open even when I would prefer to close them? Those questions have all been bubbling around inside me ever since, and now with the spiritual decathlon, I'm inviting you to explore them with me. The decathlon, as those of you following the many emails, announcements, or videos may now know, invites us to stretch in areas of personal spirituality, around our relationships with one another, and around community engagement, or how we live our purpose in the world. These areas all overlap and support each other. When I am filled with loving kindness inside myself, I am more able to show up with an open heart for someone else. When I show up with an open heart for someone else or in service to the wider community, it can fill me with loving kindness. Each of these areas tend to be more or less of a stretch for different people at different times, and each of us usually kind of know what we need in our lives right now. And the decathlon is a nudge toward what we might otherwise shy away from in order to explore how doing it anyway might change our attitude toward it, or our experience of it, or ourselves. And today, in this month of invitation, in this service on inviting one another, I want to talk about relationship. about inviting one another into relationship, about the bids for connection we make in so many ways, what it's like to make them, what it's like to receive them, what it's like to say yes or no as we strive to be more authentic, more real, more ourselves, and more healthy in our relationships with one another. Learning how to connect with people around us, even those we might otherwise shy away from, expanding our hearts and our worlds. I wonder, what does that look like for you? Kirsten reminded us in the Time for All Ages that we have great models for this in the youngest among us, whose innate capacity for connection is so accessible, who I have noticed run toward each other all the time, intuition on full throttle, hearts and bodies completely engaged. And also, they learn wholeheartedly from their experiences all the time. But somehow, as Kirsten alluded to as well, as we get older, something sometimes gets in the way of that kind of launching ourselves so fully into life. A congregant confessed to me recently that in spite of my diligent nudgings to invite you all to talk to someone you do not know at coffee hour, no matter how often I use the term friends you haven't met yet, there is something in this person that resists. They didn't explain exactly what it was, but let's just assume they have their reasons. So many of us do. Inviting others, making a bid for connection, large or small, can be a vulnerable thing. Whether that's going to a covenant group and sharing something really true for you, going to coffee hour and being just a little more real, or inviting someone to visit from clear across the country, like the situation Chris described in his opening words. The fact is, a heartfelt outreach doesn't always get the hoped-for response. But we don't always get to hear the other side, what's going on for the other person. Why flying right now, for example, in this way at this time might not be workable, no matter how much the other person might wish that it could be. We can't see into another person's heart or their life, and we might not even understand if we could. That space between invitation and response can be tender. But there are other reasons we hesitate too. Past experiences with people. I think of the neighbor who weed whacked my tomato plants, or the one who answered the door in his underwear, catching me a little by surprise. Or the friend who always would call me from the car, but the call would always drop at this one spot. Seemed to be just as it was my turn to talk about me. Eventually, I began to decline the invitation to accept her calls. It all reminds me of a favorite anecdote. A student, fresh-faced and eager, tells her mentor she's decided to go into human services. She enthusiastically describes looking forward to community building, living out her vocation, how happy she is to be working with people. He pauses, smiles, and responds just a little tongue-in-cheek, "I'm glad you are excited to work with people. But have you ever actually met people?" The truth is, people are amazing, and people are full of potential, and people are more complex than we might appear on our Facebook or Instagram pages. And while I believe building relationship is one of the most satisfying things we can do as humans in this world, navigating the territory between us is not always straightforward. I think about how all this plays out in a community like ours. a place where we get to practice. I love an idea I heard recently from author and spiritual teacher Prentice Hemphill, that boundaries are the distance at which I can love you and me at the same time. I think part of the practice of invitation is clarifying what those boundaries actually are for each of us. What does that look like? With which types of people expressing which kinds of behavior in which kind of situations? These days, I don't usually knock on a neighbor's door without calling first. And when a call drops, I'll call back or call another time or talk about it with the person. I'm still not sure what to do when someone goes a little overboard with their gardening implements or other tools around my tomato plants or other possessions, but forgiveness is also a thing. Because no boundary is perfect anyway, and I wonder, how do I keep my heart open or open it again when things happen? How do I lean in to the everything of life, of which this community is like a tiny microcosm? I once heard a true story about the community that spiritual teacher G.I. Gurdjieff led in France. Apparently, an old man was living there who was the personification of difficulty. Irritable, messy, fighting with everyone, and unwilling to clean up or help at all. No one got along with him. Finally, after many frustrating months of trying to stay with the group, the old man left for Paris. Gurdjieff followed him and tried to convince him to return, but it had been too hard, and the man said no. At last, Gurdjieff offered the man a very big monthly stipend if he returned. How could he refuse? When he returned, everyone was aghast, and on hearing that he was being paid, while they were being charged a lot to be there, the community was up in arms. Gurdjieff called them together, and after hearing their complaints, he laughed and explained, "This man is like yeast for bread," he said. "Without him here, you would never really learn about anger, irritability, patience, or compassion. That is why you pay me, and that is why I hired him." I love this story, and it makes me wonder, what if the next time your partner or child or a community member does something you do not like, you imagined I was paying them? How might that change how you feel about it? I mean, I can see how that might change how you feel about me. But I wonder how it might change how you feel about or respond to this person in front of you, this child, this person arguing with you, this apparent nemesis. What if they really were your spiritual teacher? What self-reflection might that spark? How might your response to them change? You may be thinking, as I was while writing this, surely there is a point at which this whole approach breaks down. It is one thing to practice compassion with people whose behaviors are irritating or inconvenient. It is another with people who do real damage. As a participant at the See No Stranger All Church Read book discussion poignantly said last week, I used to think people were born good. And then I became an adult and I saw things. And I decided that I had been naive. How do we think about, deal with, relate to people who do real harm? But then this person continued, I read this book. The author, Valerie Kaur, has been through far more than me. It is clear she is not naive, and she is inviting herself and us to imagine our way into exactly that idea that we are all fundamentally good, that we belong to each other, that we can connect even with our nemesis, that even someone who has done great harm, even there's hope for something different. Now, for those of you who didn't read the book, it is written by a Sikh American woman who witnesses and shares stories of devastating white supremacist violence directed at her community after 9/11. And she herself experienced significant violence in her life. One particular story stands out to me, where she needed to keep her distance from a man in her life who had hurt her as a teen and later threatened her life. She needed to keep her boundaries for a while, for years, for over a decade. But during that time, she also raged and felt and experienced and healed and prayed for him and for his well-being. It was daunting, gut-wrenching, hard labor. And eventually, she was able to go through a reconciliation process with him, which I found incredible and beautiful. It was an example of what she calls revolutionary love, practice of restorative justice, restorative love, restorative relationship. Back toward, in my mind, how we might have been with each other if someone hadn't gotten hurt in the first place. Most of us have been hit by wayward balls a few times in our lives. There are reasons why we sometimes shut our eyes and back away from the action. Maybe we need to hang out in the outfield for a while. I wonder what raging, feeling, or healing any of us need to go through to begin to recover our own true nature. And I wonder how the young people around us can continue to inspire us. I wonder how our practice of leaning into our edges might reconnect us with our intuition, our natural capacity to connect with each other, and with our wisdom, our heart, and our spirits. And I wonder how practicing in simple, everyday, personal ways right here in this community grows our capacity to be genuinely present to all kinds of people walking different paths who come from very different ways of being. I wonder how what we practice locally can ripple out to a world that aches globally. I wonder how this practice might free you, how it might free others, and how it might create more joy for all. Let us join together in our closing hymn. It's number 1018, Come and Go With Me. Please rise in body or in spirit.
Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me
We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
May we recognize what frightens us, but not let it stop us. May we recognize what hurt us so that we might let love heal us. May we notice who is with us and remember we belong to each other, so that one day, heart full, spirit tuned in, wholly engaged, we might just find ourselves delightfully, gleefully running for that ball. May it be so. Amen.